be so lonely. If you're leaving, baby, let me down slowly. Let me down. Let me down.
Welcome to Psychotic Tactics, where strategy meets chaos. I'm Psychotic Wolf, and this will be my first official episode in my Summoner's War Challenge series, Low Star Legends. No meta teams, no easy wins, just raw creativity, unique summons, and pure grit. Can we defy the odds and conquer the impossible? Let's find out. So let's get this started. So this is what we have summoned so far, and this is all I've got to pick from. I'm going to go ahead and step in here and use the one natural 3-star from the beginning. My summons were kinda iffy here, and I saw that we had gotten the Fire Vagabond through the unknown scrolls that we used. I'm choosing to use the Fire Vagabond because he's a great low star defense mon, and I'm going to be using him as our tank. The reason why I'm going to be using the Fire Vagabond is specifically he has a skill that is an AoE provoke, which is phenomenal for an early tank to have, because provoke puts a debuff on each of the enemy to force them to attack him, which at least gives me the ability to attempt to keep those squishier monsters on the core team alive as long as possible so that they can get through parts of the scenario. Another strong reason why I picked the Fire Vagabond is because he has the ability to second awaken. In this game, you have the ability to awaken your monsters, greatly increasing their stats. But when you second awaken them, they get a much cooler skin and they get much greater stats. So now that we have a tank in place, let's go ahead and move on to dealing some damage. Now, I don't really want to build meta teams or things that have already been built. I want to try and build around new ideas or strategies that I want to try and get at. So as I looked around a lot of these monsters, they have some cool abilities. I was thinking about going with the health aspect of making a very healthy bear that every time, when he loses damage, he'll revert that into attacking with that lost damage on top of what he can do. That was a really cool idea, but it also doesn't give me much synergy to the whole team. It just kind of gives me a nuker, and as well as nukers are great, I'm trying to find more of a synergized team that works together. As I look around at a lot of these monsters, they've got some great abilities and great potential. However, I'm trying to stay within an attribute balance. I want at least one of every attribute since it's a 4-slot team later on, I want at least one of every attribute so that when I get into the situations where my damage dealers are having a disadvantage against what scenario I'm running at the moment. So at least that I could circulate and make sure that I still get turns, that I'm not just, falling flat. I looked around a lot of these monsters, and honestly, it was some hard pickings, really, especially the Water Hellhound. He's got an amazing speed. His attack is based off his speed. He gives himself a speed buff. Like, he's a really decent water nuker. Again, though, it doesn't really synergize with the whole aspect that I'm trying to go for. So really, I'm trying to pick up continuous damage. Now, no matter what, if I can't really have the potential of great damage stats as if a 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star, at least I can kind of sit back and rely on the baseline of continuous damage. Let me explain what continuous damage does. Continuous damage is a debuff. On their turn, when their turn circulates around, they take 5% of their max HP, which is going to be an incredible thing to at least make sure that I am safe on some of the damage aspect. When I looked around on the team, I'm glad that I summoned a Fire Pixie and a Wind Elemental. Not only does that help me with my trying to keep an attribute balance, but both of those kind of synergize very well. His first skill allows him to put continuous damage on the enemy if he crits. So yes, I'm gonna have to do my best to build him more crit heavy instead of attack stat heavy, but he's got 2 separate skills that allow him to put continuous damage on the team. The Fire Pixie has an amazing last skill that will really help this run. Her last skill basically removes a turn from the continuous damage debuff an enemy has and uses whatever amounts of stacks that enemy has, blows it up, and deals that damage to them on my turn instead of their turn. Honestly, even though that's a great synergy, I was sitting here having a little bit of a problem because I had a hard time picking between the Fire Hellhound and the Wind Elemental. Because yes, the Fire Pixie and the Wind Elemental have a great synergy. The Fire Hellhound has phenomenal damage, as well his last skill gives the whole team increased attack and increased crit rate. So that's buffs for the team, which I don't really have just yet. But in the end, I winded up deciding to pick the synergy over just power, because I feel like the synergy is going to pull me through more content than straight power. At some point, I'm going to run in where my power is weaker than theirs, or my power is not efficient to their defense. And in the end, to be honest here, I struggled really hard not picking him. But then it came to my mind that we're not picking metas. The game already gives you Fire Hellhound to start with because he's a great monster to have. So in the end, that really solidified the choice of the Wind Elemental over the Fire Hellhound. Because I want to build something of my own making and not something that is already kind of a meta. This is strictly taking a strategy that I have and going as far as it can. And hopefully it goes all the way to the end. See, like, the game naturally will give you a 6-starred Wind Pixie that starts as a natural 2-star. You can only summon her at 2-star. But I don't want to go for the easy road and pick monsters that are already going to be freely handed to me. I want to build a team from scratch. And that's the fun part about me. It makes things challenging, and it gives my own twist to things. But again, my thoughts on building him is going to have to be crit rate and HP, so that he has enough HP to survive and the crit rate to make this first skill really shine. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the monster marking system that the game has. What this does is basically if you mark a monster with any of these that you preset up, it locks them. So you can't accidentally feed it to something else or get rid of it. It just makes it super simple to keep things in order. Alright, so let's go ahead and lock in the Fire Vagabond as my tank. We're going to go ahead and move over to the Wind Elemental and lock him as one of my damage dealers. So what I was doing here is I was kind of future tripping. I was kind of looking into a dark monster that I was really interested in before. He has an interesting passive that allows him to increase his attack power by 100%. However, he can't get beneficial effects, so no beneficial effects at all, like attack increase or speed, nothing. But this is just kind of me just looking into the future because I'm wanting to have at least a light and a dark as a choice later on, so that I don't have constant disadvantages in picking who I have to have advantages against. Okay, so let's move on to the final member of the team, and that'll be our support. So this one was a difficult decision because there's a lot of great support low star monsters. I definitely didn't want to pick the water fairy because A, it gives it to you. Second of all, it's a 3-star, so we can't use it. We've already picked our 3-star for the run, and we can't use any more until we unlock more. This one was a struggle because a lot of the support monsters that I've summoned were semi-attack, giving buffs and giving debuffs. What I really wanted was a healer because honestly I want to make sure that I have the ability to save my team if things get dire. I really wanted a healer because in the aspect of the 5-star later, if the 5-star dies at any point, I can't revive him, first of all. Second of all, the run is over. I'm done and I cannot continue. The hero has fallen. So a lot of these monsters have some great utility. However, what I'm looking for is the whole save me aspect. And the Fire Howl and the Fire Harpoon have healing, but it's very limited. When I looked at the Water Howl has an insane amount of healing and I believe a cleanse. It also helped with the whole attribute synergize. Yes, I have 2 fire, I have 1 wind and 1 water, keeping me with the ability to balance things out and make sure that I am not having a completely disadvantaged team when it comes to multiple parts of the scenario. Again, to backtrack on our damage. So the reason I picked the Elemental and the Pixie It's sustained. It really is. It's not a nuker. It isn't grand damage. Except for, when the pixie does blow up. That's awesome. That's an awesome skill, to be honest. But it keeps it sustained. It keeps it balanced. It keeps it to where I don't completely rely on a nuker on my team. It keeps it to where if one dies, I can still have somebody else as a backup just in case. In the end, for my support monster, I winded up picking the Water Howl. So right now, let's go ahead and store all these other mons because A, we can't use them. We have locked in our team. And this is going to be fun because this is the core team and we're going to finally be able to get started on progression. So let's go ahead and recap real quick. So I have chosen... So let's recap on what the core team is real quick. I've chosen the Fire Vagabond because of his provoke. Keeping all the damage directed at him is a key factor of keeping lower HP mons and squishy mons alive. I picked the Water Howl as my support because it has a whole lot of healing capabilities. I picked the Fire Pixie exclusively because of the continuous damage blow up. I also picked the Wind Elemental because he can put a lot of stacks of continuous damage on the enemies. So this is my core team that I'm going to be using. This is going to be a good bit of struggle, but I love challenges. Thanks for diving into the madness with me. If you enjoyed the chaos, the creativity, and the clutch plays, don't forget to like and sub. And hit that bell so you never miss a challenge. Embrace the madness, unleash the chaos, and let your inner insane ideas run free. I'll see you guys later.